What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This one is actually a author review. Now, I do want to premise this by saying I am still in the process of reading one of the books that I will be discussing in this video. So I have not completed it yet, but I have gotten a feel for the first fourth of the book. And so I already have cried. I've already felt the emotions. I've already felt everything. So I feel comfortable talking about this book. And then I thought we would leave the mystery of the final thoughts on the book and the rating of the book for the end of the month video where I do the reading wrap up for the month of November. For those of you that are new here, welcome. My name is Jaya. I love all things books. Fiction is probably one of my biggest passions, and so I just love to read. And I needed a space where it felt safe and entertaining and fun to talk all things books. And that's what brought me to creating this little channel on my little corner of the internet. And I can't thank the community enough for being here. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this video. Let's get into it. It's reading time here at J-Bay's Corner. The author that I'm going to be talking about in this particular video is none other than one of my all-time favorite authors, Fredrik Backman. Now, Fredrik Backman is just, I think, the master of creating a beautiful story out of normal lives, and he just has a way of giving voices to characters that we may normally not want to give voices to. He oftentimes also really highlights the struggles of people that we may not normally feel sorry for or normally connect with, and then you get to see a completely different perspective of that individual and why they are the way they are. He also has a way of creating stories about communities and the sense of belonging and mob mentality versus doing the right thing, all these different things. Just very, very emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent author. And I'm just getting worked up thinking about the books that he's written because so many of them have hit me so hard and they've become a permanent piece of my soul and a permanent part of my library. I will honestly say, under any circumstance, if Fredrik Backman were to release a book, I would be reading it. And I can honestly say that every single one of his books have hit me in some way, and I've not read a single Fredrik Backman book that has been less than a 4 stars for me, and many of them have hit my 5-star, possibly even 6-star Hall of Fame status with this author. So that being said, I can't wait to talk about the books that I have read and then give a little glimpse into the book that I'm currently reading. For those of you that are new, as I mentioned, I put out bookish themed videos and they come out every Wednesday and Sunday. And if that sounds like something you might enjoy, definitely consider subscribing and becoming a part of our community. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. Now, today happens to be a cold, rainy day here in California. And of course, me being me, I said, well, I'm sitting at home. It is my day off. I am not going to sit around in PJs all day today. I am going to actually gain some energy and do something productive. Hence the reason I'm so dressed up today. I'm actually going to be meeting a friend for some coffee, and then I'm going to try reading too. Between you and me, I have been in a major reading slump, so I'm really trying to break out of that. But I'm currently reading the second book in the Crucible series by Abigail Owen, and it's very well written. It's very entertaining. It's fun. It's a beautiful book as well. It's a special edition copy that I ended up getting off of Amazon. But at the same time, I've just been in a place. And let me tell you, Fredrik Backman's book is what knocked me out of that place. So without further ado, let's start with the first book that I wanted to discuss on this video. And that is none other than My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. This book, oh my God, again, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. So this book is about a woman who essentially was in the medical profession during a time period where she was not allowed to be. She's very, very, very large energy, beautiful, beautiful grandmother who just wants to take care of everybody else. But as is true for many people who have that high energy, big soul, wants to love the world, sometimes they have a few shortcomings at home. In particular, this grandmother did struggle with raising her own daughter. She never had a personal relationship that turned into a marriage or a stable relationship, and therefore her daughter and her are very close, but at the same time very apart and very broken, very different personalities. Grandmother has high energy, high spirits, like wants to do whatever she wants, expects the world to cater to her, and her belief is that she can break the world and change the world as she needs to protect as many people as possible. The daughter is more of the personality where she's like, I just want to keep the world calm. I just want to have stability in my life. I just want to create a safe space for my children to grow. She is currently pregnant with her second child with her second husband, and her daughter from her first marriage is a child that also is slightly special needs. She doesn't fully understand social cues. They don't actually specify what medical condition she has, but to me she seemed like maybe she suffers from some type of social disorder that makes her unable to understand those around her and how to communicate or react to them in a healthy way. She also is prone to having physical altercations with her bullies and people who bother her more so than just walking away from a situation, just because of everything she's been through. She's a child that's deemed very difficult, and the school itself tends to blame her for the situation she finds herself in because she's believed to be antagonizing towards the teacher and the children, when in reality she just asks big adult grown-up questions to people that may not be ready to hear it. Elsa is the hero of our story. She is one of the sweetest little girls that I have read. She's about 11 years old. She just found out that her grandmother is about to pass away, and she doesn't know what to do with it. She finds that her grandmother is her best friend. Her way of relating to the world is through superhero stories and Marvel and Harry Potter, and sometimes I felt like when they were describing Elsa, I was reading about myself. And sometimes it's just easier to live in that fantasy world with this person that's your everything, your safety net. And in the same way that Elsa's grandmother was amazing to the whole world, she was also amazing to Elsa. And because her grandmother had this high energy, high profile personality, she is kind of like devil may care type of personality. She and Elsa got along really, really well. Whereas her mother is struggling a little bit with Elsa because she doesn't know how to be what her daughter needs while simultaneously like pulling her out of these situations that are creating difficulties for her. Fast forward through the book, when we realize that Elsa's grandmother is going to pass away, we also find out that Elsa's grandmother has left letters for Elsa with the instruction to drop them off to various people within the town. She gives this task to Elsa because she says each letter contains a note from me to that person, basically indicating that I'm sorry about something that happened in their life. And through these various letters and through the various interactions that Elsa has, we kind of see her bridge that gap of grief of losing her grandmother, the anger of losing her grandmother, the struggle of how to relate to her mother, understanding why her grandmother did what she did, learning a lot about who's after her, why she's getting targeted, why there's so much anger thrown her way. Also understanding that adults can sometimes be broken as well, and that can lead to difficulties. And Elsa kind of stepping into that role of, you know what? My grandmother did it, I can do it too. I'm going to be a protector. And it's just such a lovely story. Probably one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. It definitely struck a chord with me. It's definitely told from the perspective of a little kid, and it's just beautifully done. We also get introduced to Britt Marie, which I think is really important because there's another book that is a sequel to this that has nothing to do with this first book, but we kind of get the story of Britt Marie in that one, and I will talk about that book next. But I will honestly say this was an incredible book, and this was a solid 4.5-star read for me. It wasn't quite the 5-star because there's other books that I've read by him that just hit home so hard that this didn't quite live up to that mark. So comparing Fredrik Backman to Fredrik Backman, not other authors, he landed at a 4.5 for me on this book. The next book I want to talk about, as promised, is Britt Marie Was Here. This book is basically talking about one of the female characters that we read about in My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You I'm Sorry, where the character is a little standoffish, a little difficult, a little hard to understand, feels very rule-abiding, very aggressive in her approach towards other people in her community about those rules being followed. Just a very difficult character. And when you read her in the other book, you kind of feel difficulty connecting with her until you get later on in the book and you see that Britt Marie actually does in fact have a heart, and she actually is a person of her own accord, and she's also going through struggles of her own. This book kind of picks up from the hints of information that we got listed to us in the previous book, where she is basically seen outside of a hospital holding a white starched shirt that she just washed and pressed and cleaned for her husband who has been in the hospital. Britt Marie at this moment also meets Elsa, who is basically running to the hospital as well to take care of a loved one. Her mother is about to pop, and she and her dad are just trying to get there to be at the hospital when she sees Britt Marie. We also have a climactic scene that happens in that moment with someone showing up that shouldn't be there, a violent situation, and Britt Marie kind of being the one that steps in and calms everyone down. And she and Elsa end up having a heart-to-heart moment where Britt Marie realizes that she's also breaking and she just wants to be seen. And it's a heart-touching moment because the line is basically like, I just want people to remember that I was here, that I meant something for somebody, not to everybody, but to somebody. And it was just such a beautiful moment. And so this book is the spin-off from that. So basically we find out that Britt Marie is now in the throes of basically separating from her husband and trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. She also realizes that someone was just found dead, and they were found dead because they were all alone and nobody knew that they had died, and she doesn't want to end up in that position. She just wants someone to realize that she's there. So she ends up in a small town, and inadvertently she decides to take on a job at the rec center, which was created for her, and her job is to basically spruce up the rec center and make sure everything runs as planned. Now, the town that she moves into is under the difficulties and the strife of a financial crisis, where basically everyone is either leaving or they're in broken down homes, or things are just not going the way that you would want it to go in that small town. The people there, however, are very loving, they're very protective of their home, and the children there are all about football. So inadvertently, Britt Marie finds herself being the football or soccer coach to these young children without realizing that's what's happening. She also slowly starts creating relationships with the different people in the community, and we basically get to see her slowly find her sense of place. We also get to see her kind of strike a little love triangle, which was cute to see, with one of the policemen that happens to be there and her husband, who inadvertently returns back to her, basically with his tail between his legs and begging for her to come home. In this sequence of events that's happening, we also see Britt Marie kind of finding herself outside of men and outside of the standard definitions of what is required of her from society. We also get a little bit more understanding of why she's so broken and why she feels this need to be accepted and needed because of a childhood tragedy that happened and how it impacted her relationship with her parents and her other loved ones around her. Overall, a very beautiful story. Again, I would say that this one is very gut-wrenching, heartwarming, heart-pulling, all that kind of stuff. And I think Fredrik Backman just knows how to write a beautiful story about community and people and individual growth. And I think this was a stunning story. That being said, again, it's not one of my favorites of his, specifically him being compared to himself. And keep in mind, I love this author so much that I'm literally doing a video dedicated to just his books. So on that rating scale, this one was about a 3.85 to a 4 for me. It wasn't quite that book that hit the mark in every possible way, but I still adored it. Okay. Anyone who's seen Up the cartoon, the Pixar movie, this is Up in a book, but better. So A Man Called Ove basically follows the story of a young man, not young actually, an old man called Ove, and he just wants to die in peace, essentially. His wife has passed away and he doesn't know what to do with himself, and he's basically trying to find a way to end his own life so that he can end up in peace in a grave with his wife. Unfortunately, a belligerent yet semi-friendly cat has decided that he is going to be a part of Ove's life, and Ove has to take care of him, whether he wants to or not. As they say, the cat picks the owner doesn't pick the cat. And then outside of that, he also has neighbors that just won't follow the rules, and they are affecting the community where Ove has lived his entire life, where he has hand built his home, where he has helped cultivate a safe community, and he just can't have it. Meanwhile, we have a random pregnant woman who shows up on his doorstep with her husband, who basically drove his car into Ove's garage. And he's like, what is happening with these crazy people? And he basically gets pulled into this family and ends up relating to the young daughters that are there, finds a way to accept the husband for all his flaws, and finds a soft, awakened spot for the young girl who is about to be a mother and almost sees a daughter in her in the way that she chooses to just jumpstart his life and push her way through. We also get to see Ove creating a relationship with the young girls. We also get to see him kind of in the circumstance of community and realizing that he has a sense of purpose again. We have old feuds that basically come to a stall when he realizes that his friends actually need him, and we see him fighting the man in the blazers and the jackets once again for the sanctity of the community. He's a very, very principled individual, and he is also very belligerent and difficult, but has a heart of gold. And in the same way that in Up, we see this man just basically fall apart over this dog and this little boy that he never knew he needed in his life, we see the same thing happen with Ove. And this story was just so beautiful to see the relationship of this older gentleman who didn't understand why his wife picked him, who's never really been able to express his emotions or feelings, who's kind of dealt in the world of being in the dark and basically lost his sense of color, slowly realizing that color can come from all different sources. That's all I'm going to say about this book. This book is incredible. It is probably one of my favorite books written by Fredrik Backman, and this is definitely a 5-star read for me. I think this was just superb, and there's a reason why it's been turned into a movie called A Man Called Ove. There's a reason why, Up did so well when it was released via Pixar. There is a reason why these stories are heart-wrenchingly, gut-wrenchingly beautiful, because it's so easy to write off the elderly. It's so easy to write off people that want to be alone or belligerent or angry without fully understanding their story. Whew, I don't know why I'm getting emotional, guys. Oh my gosh, just thinking about this book. So like I said, Fredrik Backman pulls at my heartstrings, but beautiful book. And I just think the characters that he chooses to write about, characters that you would never normally think twice about or we write off in society, those are the stories he tells. It's just, he has such a beautiful way of doing it. And this was also excellent. We talk a little bit about homosexuality in this and the acceptance of homosexuality and how people that you least expect to come to your defense will come to your defense. We get to see a foreigner kind of struggling to find her way and him just being the rock that she needs without wanting to be the rock that she needs. Like, we just get to see him jump into action and find his heart again, and also steal the heart of the community around him and start to realize that he has people too. Beautiful, beautiful book. Absolutely loved it. 5-star read. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to talk about a Fredrik Backman series. Now, I am going to list all 3 books in this one segment here because I feel like I can't give too many details on the second and the third book without ruining the plot line of the series. But please know when I say this is probably one of the best series I have ever read to be true. Like, I would put this on par of adult J-Shree love as I would for Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is something that defines me as a human being. I feel like it was there for me when I was a child. And I know there's a lot of confusion and, frustration around Harry Potter because of J.K. Rowling. And here's my thing. I believe in equality for everybody. I believe in spreading love. But that being said, I don't agree with what J.K. Rowling is saying. And I don't necessarily agree with the decisions that she's making. I also think she went through a very, very hard life. I don't know what her experiences were. I don't know what shaped her to be so conservative in the way that she thinks now. But I will say that story that she wrote spoke to so many people, and it brought so much joy to so much people. And I will not allow one person, even if they were the creator, to take away the joy that I associate with Harry Potter. Harry Potter as a story, Harry Potter as characterization was very definitive to my younger years. And I will say, in the same way that I adore Harry Potter, I adore the Fredrik Backman Beartown series. Now, let's talk about it. Beartown, the first book in this series, is absolutely beautiful, gut-wrenchingly beautiful. This talks about a town that's all about hockey. It's told from the perspective of the hockey town. We have a young man who is basically in charge of, he's on the, what is it called? He's a manager. There we go. He's the manager of the high school team, and he's very close with the influential people who also live in Beartown, and he basically works with people to increase the credibility of the team and to also bring in money for the team. And then we have the various kids that play hockey, and they're all hockey gods. And within the team, we have two characters in particular that are very, very celebrated. One is Kevin. Kevin is the it boy. He is incredible. He is seen as the man that's going to make it all the way. He is considered absolutely superb, and he is supposed to be the best of the best of the best of hockey players. And all he does day in and day out is practice, practice, practice. And so the entire town of Beartown looks at him almost like a king. His parents are slightly cold. They are definitely the types that were like, we expect you to perform. They're also very rich, so they do tend to throw money at him more so than spend time with him. So he's also a little bit lonely, and therefore he has a best friend. And his best friend is Benji. And Benji is someone who will go to war for Kevin. He'll do anything that Kevin needs because he truly believes in supporting his friend. He comes from a very broken home, and we get to kind of see the line that's been left behind for him. But we see that even though Benji's a little bit of a wild card, when it comes to hockey, he plays his heart out, and he definitely supports his team. He doesn't need to be the best. He doesn't need to be in the limelight. He's just a good guy, and he's a little troubled in school. He still gets into fights and all these other things, and oftentimes it's because he's supporting the underdog. And then we have Amit. Amit comes from the wrong side of the tracks. He comes from the lower income side of Beartown, and his mom is basically a maid or a cleaner, and all he wants to do is make her proud, and all he wants to do is get out of the hole that they're currently in, and he wants to do everything in his power to be the best. And he plays hockey all the time. He's also brilliant. He works very hard at school as well, but his only goal is to make his mother happy and to make it far in hockey. He's bullied by the older boys. He doesn't really know where he stands, but he's freaking phenomenal, and he can take a beating on the ice, and eventually we find out he makes it all the way in hockey. Then we also get the story of a couple of other students that are also hockey players on the team. We also get a sense of the mob mentality that exists within the town. And then we also get the story of Maya and her younger brother. Now, Maya is a very, I'm so sorry, guys. My foot started to fall asleep. Maya is a very beautiful young girl. She is the manager's daughter. She has kind of sort of like, been piqued by Kevin and shows interest, but hasn't really taken it anywhere. And she just wants to, have a good life. She's very into music. She's not really a hockey girl. She doesn't fully understand how to relate to her dad anymore, but they still try. She's a mom's girl. Her mom's a lawyer. She's always looking out for the best for her daughter. But, Maya's just kind of marching to her own tune. She's okay with being unique. And she recently has developed into a beautiful woman, and people are starting to notice her. Her best friend is also an amazing character. Anna is just absolutely a sweetheart, and she basically has just found a new level of closeness and safety in Maya's home. Her parents have opened the doors to them, even though Anna is a little bit of a wild card, and her father is basically reeling from the death of his wife and is basically also a drunk. So, she knows he's not violent. He's never harmed her, but he's not always with it, and so sometimes she has to hide the keys and things like that. So she's kind of in a grown-up position at a very young age. So Maya is the only safe place for her, where she also gets to just fall apart and be a kid. All these different characters have different storylines, and so as we get into Beartown, we realize that they all go to a party and something absolutely tragic happens, and there is a case of rape. And now the story is that it's the hockey team and the hockey star versus the girl that cried wolf, and whether or not what happened to her is real. The entire family gets targeted. Everything in Beartown basically starts to go to shit. We basically see that, the main character who did the deed, if you will, is trying to separate himself from it, is trying to lie about it, but you can see that he's also broken, and you can see how his parents are handling it, where there's a sense of disappointment for what he did, but at the same time, they can't let their standing and reputation fall. It's just a very, very interesting deep delve into mob mentality, the structure of power, all of these different things, the boy who cried wolf, and all these things, and the victim mentality associated with it. We get flashbacks in this book for the future as well, and we kind of get to see where the book ends up. And overall, it was just probably one of the most beautiful, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking books I have ever read. And it was just stunning. And this was a solid 5-star read for me. The next book that we end up reading is Us Against You. Now, Us Against You is the second book in this installment where now the hockey team has become divided. We have one group of people that have basically moved over to a new town that has money and access, and the stars of the hockey team there are a little bit different. They're more influential. And then we have Beartown that's struggling, just trying to hold on, and all they want to do is play hockey and be the best at hockey. But now we have kids on the opposite end of the tracks kind of being the ones pulling the weight in Beartown. And we get to see like the divide that's kind of been created in the community and the fallout of everything that happened from the first book. Beautifully written. We also get to see a young romance in this book that does end up in a death, and it is probably one of the most devastating moments in this book, and it just tore my heart apart, but it was just so beautifully done. Absolutely gorgeous. Last but not least in this series, we have The Winners. The Winners is also a chunky monkey book, but it does follow all the characters at a slightly older age, and we also get, flash forwards and flashbacks to various events that are happening. We see the desperation of a young child that is basically thrust into a world of disappointment and anger and death surrounding his life. We also get to see what he becomes when he finds out that his daughter, who just wanted protection, went through something similar to our other character who had gotten raped. But unlike the first character who has a community and a family to support her, in this book we don't. And so we get to see this downfall of his sister's story and how it has led to hate in his heart, especially towards the world of hockey. Meanwhile, we also have Beartown that's continuing to move forward and slowly recovering from the gut-wrenching things that have happened to it and the limelight that it created around them. We get to see various characters also stepping up in new limelight, such as the character of Benji. And we also, again, get some flash forwards to what's going on in the future with Maya as a musician and things like that. Again, this book does end in a death, and it is a death of one of my favorite characters. I think this just absolutely broke me, but it is a stunning book. I don't think you can go wrong reading the Beartown series. I think there's something there for everybody. I think it speaks so much to social things that we see happening in our world all the time, and how easy it is to get swept up in the wrong message, and how hard it is to backtrack when you are caught in your lies and things like that. It's such a beautiful book. It speaks to so many different social topics. It speaks to homosexuality. It speaks to violence in a community. It speaks to mob mentality. It speaks to, how a community can coexist with its thugs and things like that when they have the same goals and belief systems. It talks about different socioeconomic classes and the divide that's there and how they can coexist while there's still a wall that lives between them. It speaks to kids getting out of the holes that they've created for themselves. It speaks to violence and hate and how that can develop, but also how love can heal so many different things. It's probably one of the most beautiful series I've written, and the fact that we get to read it from the perspective of Fredrik Backman's writing, I think, is just an added bonus. And I have to say that all 3 books were solid 5 stars for me. I absolutely adored this series, and I give the series as a whole 5 stars. Beartown was definitely a 5.5 star for me. It'll go in World of Fame. Us Against You was a beautiful book. I think that was about a 4.75 for me. And The Winners was absolutely beautiful as well. Solid 5-star read. And so overall, beautiful series. I definitely think it deserves the 5 star. Brings me to my favorite book ever that I have read by Fredrik Backman, and that is Anxious People. Anxious People, I think, is one of the most beautiful novels that has ever been created. The storyline is just so incredible. It's just so gut-wrenchingly heartwarming, and it is stunning. This book is basically following the story of a group of people who end up at an open house looking at a new apartment, and they are basically being pulled into the police station because someone happened to call and say that there was a robbery that was taking place. We have the real estate agent, and then we have the 13 people that are looking at the apartment in the police station with 2 police officers. The story is told from different perspectives of people, and it jumps from fast forwarding in the future to the present. It can be a little confusing at first until you get a feel for the book, but it's just absolutely incredible. This book, I'm just going to read the back to you because I feel like if I give any more detail, it will give the book away. So I'll read the back. Hits the sweet spot between profoundly insightful and preposterously funny. I agree. I hug this book tightly with a smile on my face and tears in my eyes. USA Today. I fully agree. Looking at real estate isn't usually a life or death situation, but an apartment open house becomes just that when a failed bank robber bursts in and takes a group of 8 strangers hostage. Sorry, so not 13, 8. Each of them carries a lifetime of grievances, hurts, secrets, and passions that are ready to boil over. None of them is entirely who they appear to be. In short, they are the worst group of hostages in the world. But as the minutes tick by, they begin to suspect that the criminal mastermind holding them hostage might be more in need of rescuing than they are. As the authorities and the media surround the premises, these reluctant allies will reveal surprise truths about themselves and set in motion a chain of events so unexpected that even they can hardly explain what happens next. Anxious People is an ingeniously constructed story about the enduring power of friendship, forgiveness, and hope, the things that save us even in the most anxious of times. Captures the messy existence of being human. It's clever and affecting, as likely to make you laugh out loud as it is to make you cry. The Washington Post. So good, guys. So good. 6.5 stars, 7 stars. Take all the stars. I freaking love this book. This book will go in Hall of Fame for me. I have made every single person I know and love read this book. And when I found out Netflix made a show about it, I was excited at first. And then I was butthurt that they would even try to turn this into a show because this book is just that good. So now let's talk about the book that I have not quite finished by Fredrik Backman, and that is none other than My Friends. My Friends ended up releasing this year. I want to see, let's see, I want to say it was back in April or May. It was definitely released in 2025, May 2025. There we go. So this book came out in May of 2025, and I remember reading reviews about this book when it came out, especially watching reviews and reading reviews by people like Easy Cat and other YouTubers that love to read, whose names I'm now blanking on. But I remember every single person being like, this is one of the best books that I've ever read, but it is gut-wrenchingly painful and it will stick with you. And at this point, I am currently on chapter 19, page 140 in this book, and I'm already losing my shit. Like, I'm already losing it. I'm losing it completely. We start this book off by basically a young girl who's inside of an art gallery going in to see a famous painting that means the entire world to her. At the same time that she's looking at the painting, there's a very rich, aggressively old, conservative couple that's also looking at it, making very judgmental comments about like how it needs to go in their home, where it would go in their home, what it would represent in terms of their status and all this other stuff. And she just loses it. She's like, you don't know what the painting is about. You don't have any understanding of where the author is coming from. And in her head, she's like, the only way a painting could be this beautiful and painted the way that it is because of the fact that the author has gone through pain, and that pain and suffering is what's showcasing in this painting, and everybody doesn't even understand what it's actually about. So she basically goes in and she ends up painting a fish next to the painting on the wall with spray paint. Naturally, this is a crime, and so she is then running for her life out of this building where this painting was basically displayed, and in the process she runs into a homeless man and his cat. When she ends up on the floor with him, she later on comes to find out that she's actually bumped into none other than the author of the painting that she went to see. Inadvertently, she then ends up in a situation where the author ends up talking to her and feeling for her, and she finds out that he's about to pass away. And the author, in turn, has finally found someone who reminds him of why he was inspired to paint in the first place, and someone who inspires him of his childhood and his loved ones. He then gives the task of taking this woman under his wings to the care of his best friend, who is also reeling from the fact that the author is passing away. And the story then takes off with these two inadvertent strangers end up being entwined in each other's life and kind of being forced to be with one another. Just the span of those first 140 pages has already made me cry about 3 times, laugh out loud at least 2 or 3 times, and just imagine scenes of what's happening in this book multiple times. The friends that are talked about in this book is the 3 boys that were inside the painting, essentially. And Ted, who is one of the few surviving members of the original cast of Friends, is now being asked by Louisa to tell the story of the painting and how it came to be. So Ted is just about to start narrating the story of the Friends. Now, I can already say, just within the 140 pages that I've read of this book, that this is under no circumstance going to be under a 4.5 stars for me, unless something incredible happens by the end of the book that changes my mind. I have a feeling this is going to end up being a 5-star read. But I will say that once again, Fredrik Backman has not disappointed. His writing style is to die for, and I just don't think it's possible for anybody who picks up his book to not enjoy it. And that being said, prove me wrong if you want to, because I think books are subjective and everyone deserves their opinion. But I will honestly say, at least if you have liked the content that I've put out and you've liked the books that I've recommended in the past, I definitely don't think you're going to go wrong if you pick up a Fredrik Backman book. And that does bring me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. I do realize this is a little bit of a long one, but I just had to do a dedicated video to Fredrik Backman, who I said, and I will stand by, is one of my favorite authors of all time. He is just such an incredible author. His writing style is so beautiful, and he has a way of talking about human life in a way that is unbeatable. And I just think you can't go wrong reading Fredrik Backman. That being said, if this is your first time to the channel and you enjoyed this video, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday on bookish related content, and I would love to have you be part of the bookish community. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me that you guys are here supporting this channel. I love reading your comments. I love watching your videos. I love seeing this bookish little world that we've created for ourselves. If you've read Fredrik Backman before, whether you're new or old to the channel, definitely leave your comments below. What was your favorite? Did you like his writing style? Do you plan on reading every book he ever puts out? Is there a specific book that spoke to you the most that, spoke to me a little differently? Let me know. Who's your favorite author? Do you have any recommendations for me on who I should read if I love Fredrik Backman? I would love to know the tea. So definitely leave your comments below. I actually enjoy reading all of them and responding to you guys. So thank you for those once again. And I will leave everybody with, wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening, or night, I hope that you are surrounded by love, that you and your loved ones are safe, and that you're getting plenty of rest, relaxation, mental calmness when you just get a moment to sit down and read. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye, guys.